Okay, everyone, I think we're gonna start it now so we don't keep anyone any later than we need to. It's just after 7. Call to order the June 23rd, 2026 Canterbury Planning Board meeting. First up, we have approval of minutes. Cheryl, did you have any suggested changes?
I had none.
All right, so I take a motion to approve the June 9th draft meeting minutes as written.
I'll move to approve them.
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Minutes approved. All right, new business. There's a conceptual consultation for 114 West Road. This is for those of us who remember the prior cluster subdivision, commercial lots B and C towards the back. And with that, I see a lot of familiar faces. Sam, I don't know if you're leading this off, but
I'll start it off and then I'll kick it over to Errol. So for the record, Sam Foisey with Meridian Land Services representing this application. As the chair stated, I'm sure most of the board is familiar with this project, and then there may be some newer members on it. But to give a little summary of the previous project, that this is kind of the phase 2 portion of it. We were approved for, I believe it was 26 residential units with 3 commercial units. One of those commercial units being on the front lot. You can call it commercial A, and then 2 of those commercial units located at the rear lot, which is commercial B and commercial C. The conceptual plan that you have before you is to develop commercial B and C. We don't know if these are gonna go in at the same exact time, or if they're gonna go in at separate times, but we figured we'd present both of them to you.
You mean A is the one on the road?
Sorry, B and A is on the road,
This one.
and B and C are the ones in the back, or we can call them 2 and 3. I think is how it is on the condo plan. So the proposal before you is a total of 72 units. There is a 48 unit assisted living facility. All units are 1 bedrooms. And then there's a 24 unit memory care facility. All units are 1 bedrooms. And with that, I'll kick it over to Errol so we can kind of explain the workings of how these commercial projects work.
So thanks for having us again. Nice to see familiar faces. Errol Dewey Maslar, I'm the managing member of As Life Goes On, which is an assisted living and memory care operator. We have a portfolio of about 6 homes right now, and we've been looking to expand. So we're sort of proposing this as an expansion to our current portfolio. As Sam mentioned, we're proposing a assisted living community supported by a memory care community, not necessarily to be built at the same time, which is why they're on 2 separate lots. You know, we sort of heard what you said in the previous meetings, wanting a commercial use, and I think a number of times we heard that some type of senior care assisted living may be appropriate. At the time, we didn't think or have confidence that the market might be ready for this in this location, but since then, we've done a little bit of deeper dive. And as I'm sure most everybody is aware, our state is graying at a very fast rate. And as we gray, the need for assisted living and memory care is only going to expand. The homes that we operate now, we're getting more demand than we can actually serve, as I think many of the competitors throughout the state are. One thing I'll mention that Sam brought up is the design of these buildings. I think it's important to note that a unit is not necessarily what you consider an apartment. It's essentially a bedroom suite. So the units here are bedrooms, not apartments. So it operates as a not individual units. I think, you know, I wanted to just sort of share the visual concept, we can certainly change architecture, but the goal here would be to serve up to 72 residents between the two buildings. Operating a community like this, for every 24 beds, we generally staff or have a full-time staff of about 30 people, but they're not all on site at one time. So one of the questions that Sam had brought up is, what type of parking needs do we have outside of what your regulations might call for? What we've found is that we barely, like all my current communities have a little less than one parking space per resident. So it's like 0.81 parking spaces per resident. And only in one of my communities where we have a lower parking ratio than that, like 0.6, where we actually fill up. Usually, the parking lot is mostly, I don't wanna say empty, but half full. I'm gonna leave it there and sort of let you guys ask questions as you may.
Yeah, so kind of to kick it back over to me, we recognize that we need to get site plan approval, which would be via this board. We also need to get ZBA, a special exception, I believe, because I think while there isn't a assisted living facilities within the list of uses, it seems like nursing home is the closest use that this would fit under, which does require a special exception, so we'll have to go before the zoning board. We will need to amend our driveway permit to expand the use for this increase of intensity. And then the AOT permit that we received associated with the front portion of the project, we are in compliance with the impervious coverages, so that basin that was proposed with the earlier project meets the requirements of the stormwater needs for this. We just have to be able to convey it over to it. We've also looked at some septic loading, making sure that this is very rough and not finalized at this point in time. We did want to make sure that there is available space for chambered septic systems to be located around the facility and comply with nitrate setbacks. It actually kind of is perfect timing because the wells that have been drilled out there, we can update those approvals as we're going through the process for the 26 homes to include the public water or the water supply for these units. So as part of
They will share water supply?
they will share water with that public water supply, and we will either need to directional drill through the field up to the assisted living facility, which would probably be the most efficient way to get the water there, the shortest run. With that, there are some other things that we'll need to add to this plan. Obviously, it's very rough and crude. Dumpster locations, we recognize that the town has a pretty extensive landscaping requirement, so this will need to have a landscape plan that will come with it. We are definitely gonna need to meet with fire, which is kind of great that fire is here tonight, so it would be very helpful if the board allows the fire department to chime in here with building access, turnarounds, fire cisterns / sprinklers if any of those are needed. And then the one item that I did speak with Aaron mostly about is parking, where within the parking regulations, I believe, again, it doesn't really fit well into a specific category, but the most appropriate one within the land development regulations is multifamily. The multifamily in the regulations requires 2 spaces per unit, which is roughly 150 if we were gonna strictly follow those regulations. I would point out that I believe there is an RSA that's I think it's 674:16 that actually does restrict towns for allowing or for requiring more than 2 spaces. However, we think that if we just ask for a waiver, using Errol's actual data of what his actual uses are, we think we can get to an appropriate number of parking spaces. On this plan that you see before you, there's actually 105 shown on here, which is about 1.5 spaces per unit. which is almost double what Errol typically sees as a requirement of his other facilities. And we'd be looking to actually reduce that even further below the 105 spaces, but we can even reserve areas where if ever there was a parking need greater than what his actual demand is today, we could go ahead and construct those in the future. So that's one item that we'd be looking for the board's input. Recognize this is conceptual, nothing is binding, but any little head nod of, or we don't think that's gonna fly, we'll be happy to receive that here today versus once I get fully into the design. With that, I think it's pretty much, here's the project. We hope that the board will see that it is a favorable project, and any comments, concerns, or questions would be great.
Sure, so,
Could I just add something? You talk about sprinklers, under the RSA's we operate under and DHHS requirements, as well as I'm sure fire chief, we would absolutely put sprinklers in, so it'd be a full sprinkler building.
alright. Thank you. Thanks, Sam. Errol, the way I envision sort of the rest of this going is we'll have the board, any members, and I'll make sure everyone has an opportunity can ask questions. I have a few follow-ups to start about the nature of the buildings. And then I want to open it up to anyone who's here if they have concerns. Do you have any issues if, assuming people are behaving, if I just have them ask you directly instead of doing the back and forth to the board?
If you guys are okay with that.
All
I'm
right, if
okay.
people are behaving, so we'll start with the chief and then work our way through other people. If it starts getting out of hand, I'll make people direct
All
comments and questions to me,
all
but
good as far as I'm concerned.
I think I agree, and I think it's helpful to hear from the public during preconceptual, because if they have concerns, they're gonna come out later, and you wanna know the concerns just as much as we do before we get there.
Thanks.
Alright, so to start it off, before I turn to other people, can you just explain a little bit more about the two different facilities in terms of who you envision the occupants being, age, disability, level of acuity, what I mean, there's like a whole range of different types of
Sure.
care facilities. So what's the difference between the two and what do you envision?
Yeah, great question. So these homes would be licensed under RSA 805 in the state of New Hampshire, which is a residential care home. And
RSA what?
805?
There's no 805.
Yes, there is.
It only goes up to 600 something. I just wanna read it someday.
Okay, well, I'll search for it while we're here. Half of my homes operate under 804, other half operate under 805. The precursor to that is RSA 151. So I think if you searched 151 and then drilled down on it, you'd find 805 as one of the RSAs. In that RSA, it spells out pretty broadly what we can do and what we can't do, because we're not a nursing home. So the level of care that we provide stops at a certain level, and just sort of roughly speaking, at the 805 level, if somebody needs, or their acuity level reaches a point where they need much more than a two-person assist to bathe, to get around, from a medication perspective, we are not sort of doctors, or we have a nurse on staff, but we're not going to administer medicines. We're gonna sort of manage the process and make sure that people take medicines.
Okay.
So and both homes would be licensed under the 805 regulations, but they'd offer different levels of services. So
Starting with the bigger one, can you just
Yep.
maybe describe, like, what are the services that get offered to those
Yep.
residents?
So activities of daily living, right? So we're gonna provide meals, housekeeping, medication supervision, activities, so games, entertainment, things that keep people active as they age, chair yoga.
And then to help where, I mean, what are you not providing? Like, is there like a list of things you would not provide?
Yeah, nursing care.
Nursing care.
Let's see, trying to think of an example. If somebody needs shots on a daily basis of some medicine, like diabetes, we can, the nurse can do that. But outside of that, our staff doesn't get involved in that level of care.
Okay.
Wound care, rehabilitation. If somebody falls, breaks their hip, we're not going to provide physical therapy and whatnot. Does that answer your question?
That helps. It gives
Okay.
me more context. I'm less familiar.
So actually, but I want to sort of drill down on a few more questions or things that you asked.
Can I just see what Megan, I think she was
Okay.
following up on this part.
Is that just for the assisted living, or will there be any medical care providers in the memory care facility?
No, the difference between the two is the memory care component. So when somebody, and the assisted living is essentially a feeder for memory care, because as we age, many people develop memory issues, not just Alzheimer's, but other sort of forms of dementia. So one would feed the other. And the differences are not in medical, but in the, let's say, types of activities that would be taking place on a day-to-day basis, and the level of access or egress in the building, meaning memory care home, at least the way we operate, is a locked facility with alarms on the doors, so that we're trying to keep people, contained so that they don't elope and get themselves in trouble.
Is there a nurse 24/7?
At the memory care, yes. At the assisted living, no. Although in the proximity here, they for the assisted living, we call it a consulting nurse or RN, but they're not on staff full-time. With the memory care, it's full-time.
One person?
It depends on the number of residents.
If you were at full occupancy, how many?
For this, so that building would be 24, so we would have one full-time, one part-time. You had asked about sort of, I think, the demographics, let's say.
Sure.
Our average resident in the assisted living is around 72. And, we've had residents as young as 64, and as old as 104. It's pretty similar for the memory care, although the average age is a little higher, probably around 78.
Okay.
A follow-up question about the memory care. Is there a level of acuity in memory care which you cannot help? Dementia is a progressive
That's a great question.
disease, so.
I
At
would
some
say,
point,
I would
medical
say, I
care
would
is
say
necessary.
yes, right? So every resident goes through an assessment process that our administrator and nurse are involved in, and they're trained to sort of understand what we can and can't deal with. I would say that there is a possibility, although we haven't done it yet, where somebody would get turned away for needing more pharmaceuticals that would be to tone down aggression. So there are people that with memory issues have or develop aggression issues, and we can't deal with that, or we won't deal with that.
Right, so part of my concern with no medical care is that as dementia progresses, the number one reason people pass is aspiration pneumonia, because you lose the ability to swallow.
Sure.
And that would concern me if you were treating dementia patients with no limit on acuity and having no medical care providers. And you said your administrator does the assessment to determine if somebody in assisted living needs to go into memory care. Is that person a psychologist or a psychiatrist?
Yeah, so we're sort of overlapping things. So no, administrators do have to be licensed, and they're licensed through DHHS.
Mhm.
So there's a process for that. And I'll say minimum requirements for the types of situations they can deal with, and the types of trainings that they've had, and education and whatnot, as well as experience. I'm not sure how you asked the question, right? But we are not medical facilities, and part of the requirements that we have are to continually assess residents, but at minimum, every 6 months, residents go through an assessment process. The administrator and in the memory care situation, the administrator and nurse are involved in that process. They have a team meeting, discuss the events that, or the resident and the levels of care that are needed. And at any point, if that level of care gets beyond what we feel our capabilities are, we recommend that they go to a nursing home or some other facility that can provide for their care. And any resident or family caregiver bringing a resident to us understands or is educated on what we can and we can't do, and they make decisions as well. There are, I'll say, many of our residents who don't want to be resuscitated if something happens. And they recognize the risks of that. If they had concerns, beyond what we can do, they wouldn't choose us as a home.
So if a person develops the aggression you were talking about, you brought up, and you can't cope with it, they get kicked out, to a nursing home.
Yeah, I mean, kicked out's a strong
I
word.
know.
Because we work really hard to keep people out of nursing homes and give people a home for life, right? Like we don't want people to have to go to a nursing home. We don't want people to pass away, but we're in a life cycle business. So in certain circumstances, and it's not just us, it's us and the family and the caregiver. And when the resident is cognitive enough, the resident's involved in those decisions. Like I had a resident a couple weeks ago come to us and say, gee, I feel like I'm too much of a burden. I have too many issues going on. I think I should consider going to a nursing home. And we've been working with that family to actually, and our belief is she doesn't need that yet. But we work as a team to figure those things out. It's not just, oh, time to go. Work hard not to have that.
All right, I have one more sort of question about operations, and then we can open up a few other questions about operations, but then we can go through like traffic and water and all those other pieces. You talk about 805, and obviously I'm not familiar with that statute, but is it
when I come back,
like in,
I'll bring you like that RSA so you guys can get familiar.
Is it like
too.
8:05?
No, it's
It's
Eight-
RSA
805.
151, Joshua.
Oh,
The
okay.
805 comes from like a DHHS document, and that's just what people
Okay,
commonly
it's
call it.
part of 151.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That will probably help lead you to what you actually want.
that's all right, I didn't really care about the number, I'll find it eventually, I'm sure it's there. My question is, obviously there's an initial licensing, but what is sort of the ongoing licensing requirements look like? Is there like annual or biannual oversight? How often are they checking the facility?
Every year that come in, they do unannounced inspections for fire safety, also compliance with documentation that we have to maintain. As an example, the care plans that are developed and used and updated every 6 months. They review our staffing records to make sure that everybody who's on staff is properly trained. We go through dementia training every year. I forget exactly how many hours, but it's 8 to 10 hours a year, but minimum. But we do far more than that. We practice sort of a holistic approach in the memory care homes. So we're constantly doing in-service trainings, weekly, daily. That there's significant turnover in the industry right now in terms of staffing, so we're constantly retraining and training. But the state does inspections once a year.
So I'm gonna start on my right side. Calvin, any sort of questions, concerns, want to flag? Janice?
Yes.
Josh?
I have two as far as the operations go. Are you an owner or part owner of
I am the owner.
the owner of this, whatever the name was, okay.
My wife owns a little bit too.
Pardon me?
My wife owns a little bit too.
My mother lives in Riverwood, and I've become very familiar with, she's going through one of these transitions, so I've become very familiar with this in the last year or so. what does the contract look like for the residents and how much money does it cost to get in? Or I
Well, so there's a variety of different, let's say, business models for assisted living, and I think Riverwood is more of a continuing care retirement community. So our homes are a monthly fee, mostly all inclusive for the services we provide. Call it room, board, activities of daily living, and the care that somebody would need. I think I would be out of my depth to quote what the rate might be here, but for my homes right now, when it's assisted living, we range from about 5,000 to just under 7,000. And then memory care, and I'm using round numbers, right, are about 7,000 to 12. Many of our competitors are significantly more expensive.
Anything else, Josh?
No.
Again?
And sorry, the market will sort of
Sure.
demand and our cost structure, once we get there, would affect those rates.
What types of employees and what level of licensure for each? So starting with the assisted living, say per bed, what types of employees? You said about 30 employees per bed. I imagine some of those are in the realm of janitorial. I'm talking about the hands-on with the people living there.
Yeah, maybe I
Are they
misspoke.
LNA?
So we run about 30 full-time staff to manage a 24-bed home.
Oh,
So
sorry.
so this would be more than that. We and I'll talk about us versus the industry. So we run a ratio on a day-to-day basis of about 1 to 4 or 5. So one care provider, which is either a CNA, which is a trained care provider, LNA, higher care trained provider. You look familiar with those. And then we have med passers. So every shift is going to have a med passer. And the number of med passers is going to be determined based on the number of residents we have at any given point. Memory care, add to that the nurse, full-time. They'll be on call, off hours, so evenings, we always have somebody available 24/7, and we are staffed 24/7.
Are there any therapeutic services at the memory care?
So we don't provide therapeutic services. They are brought in, and that sort of jumps into the medical side. So every resident's required to have a primary care physician. We do have, I'll say, visiting nurses that come in as an out service, not for us, but for the residents. So those folks are always coming and going, and we will have OT come in and PT come in, but they're not part of our staff, and they're not contracted to us. They're direct care providers to the residents.
Okay.
7K to 12K is a pretty big range. What, I'm assuming that there's some additional services or?
Well, that covers all the things that we do. And it could be as much as incontinence care, right? So at the memory care level, we deal with a lot of incontinence, so we're providing diapers and the things.
So that is something that increases the monthly cost.
I guess I have to separate the assisted living from memory care. With the assisted living, our services are for the most part all inclusive, right? Until you get into sort of medical stuff or things that we aren't supposed to do, right? So the rates that I quoted you, that's sort of a range, right? And like I have properties in very different demographic and socioeconomic areas. So some of those rates are lower. Like my lowest rate is 4,500. That's in an area where the real estate costs the least. So I'm not sure how to answer your question, but that is the range.
So in a given facility, the range for the memory care, for example, the range in a given facility isn't 7 to 12. The range in a given facility is smaller.
Actually, so I better understand the question now. In the memory care, we have, and I'm not proposing this community would be this way. I expect this to be one resident per unit or bedroom. In one of my memory cares, we have the option to have a companion suite or a private suite or call it a deluxe private suite. That's where the primary rate difference is. And then also in the, I'll say, care level of that particular resident, because there are residents who come to memory care who don't need a lot of hands-on attention throughout the day. And then we have other residents that need a lot and maybe even need 2-on-1 care. So there are care levels, 1 through 5, that would be added on. So the base rate might be 7,000, but then the care level will contribute and the room choice that they take will.
That answers the question, yes. So you do not plan to have like companion suites or in this facility?
Not the way that this is designed, no.
Not the way this is laid out. Are there kitchens in any of these suites so that a person could provide their own meals?
Yeah, great question. So in the assisted living, we may have not full kitchens, but like a little bar area where you might have a microwave, a small sink, and a small refrigerator. In the memory care, we would not do that. It's a community, and we provide all the cooking and whatnot. Assisted living, we would, in both homes would have a commercial type kitchen, meeting all the fire safety requirements that the fire department would require. But it's community dining. Not that people can't eat on their own, but we try to, especially in the memory care, try to have a community environment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, more. I've got a list too.
I'm going. To move into memory care, is there a requirement for a formal diagnosis?
Yes.
So an actual assessment from
Yes.
a medical provider?
Yep.
Alright, Logan?
I don't think I have any immediate questions, but what may throw at least like a minor logistical wrench in this is that technically none of these qualify as dwelling units under our rules. And this would not fall under like the definition of a multifamily.
No, I
residence
think
either.
the table of use, it would not be that, it would be under nursing
think
home,
it-
unless the ZBA disagreed and thought it
Well, yeah,
wasn't.
that'd be a
Just
question.
a sort of outside of our scope. So that was the only piece though, okay.
Yeah,
I'm gonna-
it's not a question, it's just that this is a peculiarity of the rules that we're working on.
Alright, I'm gonna,
No, good.
no worries, I'm gonna try to walk through a lot of the normal things we'd look through in site plan to try to flesh out any of these, so help me out. So in terms of the access road, as you guys sort of roughed it out, does it change anything in terms of the size of this proposed facility, in terms of deliveries, in terms of fire? You know, is that going to need, do you envision it being expanded wider than its current footprint?
That's a question for Sam.
Are you talking about the access road coming into the
Yeah, like
property?
the one between the pines along the highway.
No,
yeah.
so that one will remain 24 feet wide.
Okay. Do you envision putting any on premises advertising, meaning signs anywhere, anything facing the highway, or elsewhere on this lot. I don't know if there'd be permission to put one somewhere else.
I see
The
you
big
reviewed
thing
the
says
concept plan where we are reserving an area for a potential billboard sign if.
No, I completely missed that, so don't give me any credit.
And that's where that little awkward jog comes in with the site
So-
access coming in here.
What I'll just flag, because it's pretty conceptual, so I think the size of a sign you're allowed is
There would be a,
24 square feet.
there would be a ton of variances that would be required to put that billboard up.
Okay, so
Beyond,
that on your
beyond that, we would want signage for the community.
and the reason I'm flagging that is if you're gonna end up needing variances before you come to site plan review, you'd want a variance for a larger if it's on premises sign saying, dang it, I forget the name of the business, but if you had that
Yeah.
on a larger sign facing the highway as advertising of your business, you'd need a variance before coming for site plan review.
What we've generally done is the homes have their own name, the operating company has a separate name.
I see, so
So,
that might
so
have
this
some.
might be something like Hildreth House, or, we usually try to pick up on something local.
Okay, so I just want to flag that if it is larger than in the ordinance, that's a variance you'd have to look at.
May I augment? that?
Sure.
The billboard you have in the road jog, that's a separate commercial use, I'm guessing, yes, that's not really part of this.
That's correct.
The Hildreth House, or whatever you're gonna call it, you're talking about signage on, what's the name of this road? West Road there, is that what
Yeah,
you're talking
we
about?
haven't actually talked about it, so, I would want some visibility so that people know it's back there. I think by the nature of the site, it's gonna be visible through the trees from the highway. And we would advertise extensively, but I would want some signage.
The billboard isn't necessarily Hildreth House.
No, that's not
Billboard
for,
is
that's not
separate.
for us, or that's not for Health with Us.
Brendan, can I ask a quick one? Is there gonna be a barrier or something to separate the community from the nursing community? Or are you encouraging commingling, like the use of that open space in the middle? Is there gonna be something that separates the two, or is this the intent sort of
Yeah, I think they would operate synergistically, and that would be a shared space.
so the open space would be shared, whatever trails, walking paths, whatever?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's limited common area in the.
I just wasn't sure if the
The
common area
condo
was tied to the condos or if it was.
I think there, at least if I remember from the condo docs, and Sam, you can jump in, they're all condo units and they all have common area that they share.
Correct.
Yes, it's limited common, so all those residences and the commercial uses have the same
Have
right
the
to
right to
use.
walk within that open
Okay.
space line,
Right.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, and I misunderstood you.
It's a good question.
Yeah, I just wasn't
thought you
sure
were
if-
talking about the space where the parking is between these two buildings.
No, I didn't know if someone living in the community was gonna say, I don't like Nana walking across the flowers in the field because she,
I guess.
I
Avoiding that.
guess they could say that.
Okay.
So about this billboard, again, the signage, that being a separate commercial use, my guess is that there are members of our community who are going to react to that differently than this other proposal. And I would suggest that either we have a separate conceptual piece for that, or make sure, whether that's our responsibility, yours, to apprise the residents of Canterbury that's a thing. Because that's likely to be seen differently than the other portion of it.
I can appreciate that, and so I don't wanna get too hung up on the billboard, cause there are a lot of, I'll call them hoops to jump through to even get to that stage. However, we also don't wanna say that there are intentions of possibly having that there, so when this comes forward, there likely won't be the billboard as part of the site plan, but the jog will still be there, reserving area for in the future if they're able to get those variances for it, and then put it up.
Yeah, part of the reason I'm not commenting on the billboard is I think it would take a variance and I don't have to express my opinions of billboards. They can take that up with the CBA. In terms of amenities, do you envision any, like, what am I gonna call these? Water amenities, like pools, jacuzzis, is there, any of those sort of things that you
No,
wouldn't necessarily be expecting, but in theory could be offered?
no, I think at most, which I would want to do, is some type of walking path around the buildings and the community. And in many cases, when we've had the space, we do outside gardening areas. So that would, I think, get incorporated on this site. Generally speaking, if you see the space in the center of the bigger building, much of that would take place there, as opposed to further out. In the memory care building, we would fence off a portion out behind that would, again, keep
Good, you're
people
jumping to some
from,
of my next questions.
keep people from eloping, but also have the ability to spend some time outside.
Okay, so in terms of outdoor amenities, what you're considering is walking trails, gardens, and potentially
Call it-
enclosed areas, both with the main building and an enclosed area for the memory care facility.
Correct.
Can you talk to us just generally speaking about traffic and what kind of traffic you get generated from facilities like this, where I imagine it's more shift change based and employee based, delivery based?
Yeah, many times, and I think the question and comments were made about what's the acuity level. Most of our residents, actually, none of our residents in the memory care drive. Most of our residents in assisted living do not drive. So the majority of the traffic is gonna be family visit, people visiting and staff. And this is, I'll call it anecdotal and sort of observation. The newest memory care home I have right now is 24 beds, 24 residents. We have, in that home, we have 24 spaces. I've yet to see them full. Generally speaking, maybe half. So, call it 12 cars. And over the course of an hour, any given day, maybe a couple cars coming and going.
Okay.
And I think, I would hope that a traffic study wouldn't be in order, but I think if we did one, we would find the numbers to be very low.
And you had mentioned earlier, I think it was the Epsom facility with the 0.8 ratio
That was the average.
average.
Yeah.
And 0.6 for the other one, and that's the one you said sometimes it does fill up.
Yep.
Is that filling up on like a daily basis, or is it based on events that are held, like family days or Christmas or holidays where more people are coming in?
More Christmas holidays, yeah.
And so the,
And I should say.
Mother's Day.
Right, yeah, Father's Day is not, the most parking I have for any property is one per resident. And that community does not, like, I've yet to see it filled up over 4 years.
this is conceptual.
Take that.
You show,
Outside of a grand opening.
you show, I phrased that 108 spots, whatever. Is that your proposal, because that's the amount you want, because that's sort of the amount that you think that it's going to take us to get to an approval? Like, would you actually want less? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What's your, what do you actually think that the parking needs would be? And if you had a lower number, what would you do with it? Like, what would you do with the space?
Yeah, so I'd be grateful to not be required to build more than one per resident per bed, so that would be 72. I think that would be more than sufficient. I like the idea of reserving space to build more in the future if we found it necessary. I like the optionality of that. If we didn't use the space for parking, I would say green space and or extension of the walking areas and or picnic area, things like that. But I think we do need to sort of defer to the fire chief, because
We're almost there.
there's gonna be
Thanks.
requirements that are over my head in
Yes.
terms of like access around the back. So there may still be pavement there, just might not be parking.
I don't want to jump ahead. I have something that are related to that, but I'm saving them. We're almost there. In terms of, you talked about approximately 30 staff per 24, but that this is not sort of a high intensity facility. So I imagine that's more the 2 day shifts and less at night.
Yeah, so I should clarify that, right? So we maintain a staff of about 30.
Right.
But there's not 30 on staff at any given time.
Right.
Right? Probably the high end would be 12 to 24 on let's say daytime hours, and then it drops.
That's what I expected. Yeah. All right. Sam, what are chambered septic? I'm not familiar.
So it's a septic system that is H20 loaded, which just means that a truck can drive over it, so you can put it underneath the parking area. So it's a concrete chamber that has rectangular walls and comes up, and you kind of stack them all together, and it takes the place of your typical pipe and stone leach field, but it has the structural integrity to go underneath
What does it
parking areas.
get pumped mostly? Not like.
No, it leaches
Or
into the
it still
ground,
uses
the
a leach
same
field?
as every other septic system.
So it's a leach, underground leach field kind of thing?
Yes, your leach field probably is pipe and stone probably, which is a perforated pipe with stone around it. This ends up just being, instead of the pipe, it's a concrete chamber, because if you drove a truck over the pipe, it would crush it. And this chamber allows for the truck to
And
drive
it
over.
perforated?
But it's actually just stone on the bottom, so it allows it to, so the chambers are just basically ends.
I understand.
Okay.
And those would be those 6 squares.
Yeah, so those are actually sized as if they were pipe and stone, so when they go to a chamber system, it allows you a 40% reduction, so they would actually get smaller than that. And it might even allow me to combine them into smaller sections, but the reason why I did 6, I kind of wanted to do like more of a worst case scenario to where if you look at how these units are set up, they're kind of in groups of 12s in the corners and then 12 on the ends there. So you could have 12 units be going to one septic field, if that's the way that it gets designed.
And so, again, it's conceptual, but the dotted lines around the rectangle on the inside, that's essentially your leach field area around.
Actually,
But I guess what I'm getting at is most
Yeah.
of your leach fields would be within the commercial lots and not within the.
well, so
Open space.
this is the leach field,
Okay,
which is that size for 12 units without taking that 40% reduction. This dotted line is what's called the nitrate setback, so based off of the amount of flow going to it, you need to keep that within the overall lot. So it
Okay.
needs to stay not within the condo lot, but within the actual parent parcel of the overall parcel.
so I got stuff to learn, but we'll put that in terms of when you come back, be prepared, I guess, to explain that again and
Very
in
well.
more detail.
Yeah.
All right. Are there concerns related to power and utilities and generators and backups for a facility where I imagine it's this, not people who want to lose power?
Yeah. I don't know if you caught that.
I missed
Keith said
that.
we
Sorry,
have
Keith.
3-phase power out there,
Okay.
but one of the requirements that we have to comply with the regulations is backup power. So
All right.
we have significant backup generators in all of our bigger homes.
Where would they be located?
I would defer to the design as it develops. So they have to be a certain distance away from the building. We would comply, but I don't know where they would be. I would certainly look for an unobtrusive area that meets all the requirements.
I'm thinking about the residences closer to the road, and noise.
Yeah, we're sensitive to that too, but I don't know where that would end up right now. Maybe that's something we could have more information on when we come back.
That'll definitely be shown on the plan, but the conformance criteria to siting the generator isn't very strict. So it's not gonna, there's plenty of room on the site to put a generator on it.
And I'm definitely sensitive to making our residents comfortable and nice environment, so I want it in a place that doesn't cause them distress.
Alright. One floor plus basement, 2 floors, I'm looking at an image, but I don't know how stock or not that is.
Yeah, this is somewhat stock, this is developed for multiple projects we've looked at. Single level, more likely than not slab, so no basement.
Those sort of the key pieces, and obviously those have to get fleshed out. Any other questions? Otherwise, I wanna pivot to the fire chief, because I sort of saved all the fire and medical.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
Are you a profit or non-profit entity?
Great question, depends on the week. I am a for-profit, and I know a number of our competitors are not for profit, but make far more money than I do.
But I mean, as far as taxation in the town, that's a.
We're not, we are for profit, so tax base would be the tax base, whatever that is. And, hopefully we get employees from town.
Pardon me?
We'd find employees in town, hopefully we'd find employees.
Oh yeah, I'm super curious what the assessed value on Epsom is.
I don't know.
That's for another day.
I don't know if I'm jumping the gun on this or not. This is a commercial use insofar as you're a profit entity,
Sure.
but it's also very residential-ish, right? And I know there's been some legislative changes, and maybe my question doesn't matter because of that, but I would like to know, and I see lawyers not here, but if there is now, if my understanding of the legislation is accurate, and I don't know if it is, then you have residential allowed in commercial zone by right. And I don't know if that's actually what the legislation says, but that's sort of what the newspaper says. And if that's the case, then I don't really have a question. But if it's something short of that, I don't know, I'm just guessing. I'm not sure I have much of a concern about it, but maybe my constituents might.
Sure.
That if this is residential or commercial, and it's sort of on that gray line, and so I'd be interested in the answer to that, maybe at some future time.
I'm aware of the legislation, not overly familiar, and I understand it, I think the same way you do, is that it is now allowed by right. Although most of the communities, I actually shouldn't say most, all the communities I've worked in on this sort of thing, they do consider it a commercial use.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's sort of back to your ordinance in terms of the definitions, so.
I think this is a commercial use, not a residential use in the same way a hotel would be.
My last question here is, I'm talking about parking again, and this is just a personal taste issue, I think, more than anything else. I would put all the parking next to the highway and leave the green space on the top of that drawing. I guess that's the east side. To minimize what I see in some of these similar facilities is that it looks a little bit like a mall. There's a single level building surrounded by asphalt, and it's just ugly, I guess, and it doesn't seem very, if I were living there, amenable. And I guess my sense is that if they were thought through a little bit better, it might be more green surrounding this and parking can be a little bit more creative. And so I would, this is my taste, I would move the building up and put more parking along the highway and put your generator there too. And that way you would take advantage of the beauty really that there is to the eastern side
So
of this.
that's very kind of you. You're looking out for the residents and you
I
want everyone on the highway to be like, we're in New Jersey.
It's gonna be that.
But actually, as far as the question, what are we looking at for impervious surface? Have you looked at that? Yeah.
Yeah, I believe we're about 50% when the stormwater allowed for 70 or 75, I don't know, can't remember off the top of my head.
Alright. I'm gonna pivot to the chief, and maybe part of that, because it's related to parking, is where you're gonna have fixed parking for fire and rescue, and I don't know if that's necessarily on here. Thanks, so any concerns, things that we should be looking at, things that they should be
Would you
looking
like
at?
me to stand or come up, or?
You can be there, I think they said earlier, and they may come to regret it, that you can just address them directly and we'll listen.
Super, so I'm not prepared tonight to give my opinion or my conclusion on fire safety and all that, and access and all that stuff, but that time will come. What I was asked to present tonight is the emergency response projection for EMS response.
Sure.
What I did, and you know, I know you have nursing homes, assisted living, memory care, and here we're assisted living and memory care. I picked up some nursing homes to compare it against, so I'm not quite sure what services they offer. That's the data that was readily available to me,
Sure.
okay? So based upon, go ahead.
Yeah, so we're definitely different than a nursing home.
Mhm.
And I don't actually own any nursing homes, so I'm not familiar with the level of costs.
So they provide three different, they provide memory care, they provide nursing, they have a section for assisted living as well.
Gotcha,
From what I'm
okay.
told.
Yeah.
So they do all three, so they're similar, not necessarily apples to apples, maybe apples to oranges a little bit. So anyways, the data that was available to me in calendar year 2025. Canterbury Fire Department, most of my members are trained in fire and EMS response. You call 911 for an ambulance, you're getting a fire truck as well. We come and we usually get to deploy the ambulance, we provide care, and we load the patient into the ambulance, and the patient and the ambulance transports to the hospital. We subcontract that ambulance in town for most part of the town to Canterbury Rescue out of Boston. Canterbury Rescue Squad. So the projection methodology was the Epsom Manor has 108 beds. They responded to in calendar year 2025, the Epsom Fire Department 150 times just for medical calls to that facility, which equates to 1.39 calls per year per bed. I take that math times the 72 that's proposed of the two facilities off of West Road, that equals 100. 100 additional calls per year, not including fire calls, just EMS calls to that facility. I didn't have time to populate the fire calls, but I was told basically on the way here that it's 12 to 15 per year for the one building. So now we're talking two buildings, so that's an additional 30. So just
Sorry, say that last piece. What's
So-
12 to 15 a year?
12 to 15 fire calls, whether it's the
Fire
fire alarm,
calls,
somebody
okay.
pulled the fire alarm,
Gotcha.
it's just a malfunction, somebody burnt some popcorn. It just, and God forbid, just an actual fire, you know what I mean, so.
Yeah.
About 12 to 15 of those a year per building, so we're just talking EMS responses. And calendar year 2025, the Canterbury Fire Department did 351 emergency calls. You had 100 on top of that, that's just under a 30% increase in our volume of calls, not including
Oh,
the additional 35 calls. We did 351 in calendar year 25, yes. And if you add the 30 or so fire calls, that's on top of that, it's a 37% increase in our call volume projected.
I think we're all gonna have someone to follow up. We'll start. Calvin?
Chief, with these numbers, is there projections for the units being added to Merrimack County, and can Pennacook Rescue adequately cover the added?
I haven't brought them in for discussion yet on this proposal, but they are close to, and Ken's aware of it too, we've had discussions about them adding a second ambulance, so they're working with Merrimack County and their responses there.
Do you know when their beds are due to come on, those extra 100 the county's adding?
They're working on it now, they're hoping this summer they're gonna have at least half of those units online. They're projecting by the end of 26, they would have also all those units online.
Where's that?
Merrimack County, they're bringing a memory care unit,
Over in Boscawen.
yes, at the Merrimack County facility.
Yeah, you go first.
Burning a hole in you
Hopefully
right now.
you'll ask my questions better than I can ask them.
This is for you, Chief. So this is 351 calls in 2025, but we're about to see significant residence increase.
Yeah, based on the data that I gathered.
Yeah.
is-
So just kind of, and I know you're not going to have exact numbers here, but somewhat projecting out, if you look at the trend of how many calls, say over the past 5 years, have we been on an increase? And do you expect an increase with Hildreth Farm, being that is a significant influx of residents that,
So the
for our
study-
small
The
town?
study did comparable communities such as Hildreth Farm going out, there's probably half a dozen for the year based, traffic and medicals and fire calls or whatever, so it's kind of, it was that, the single family homes alone were really insignificant to, but an assisted facility would be impact us even more.
And have you seen over the past few years an increase in calls for
It's
us
a
or a
steady
decrease
increase,
or is it?
this year we're a little behind last year, this year probably about 3% behind last year, but,
Okay, so we're not
yeah.
seeing a huge spike.
no, but it's slowly trending up.
Thank you.
Why?
Aging.
Aging.
Thanks. I know you didn't come prepared necessarily to talk about it, but high level, does fire department typically for facilities like this need to have access to all the different sides of a building in case there's
That would be nice, that doesn't necessarily need to be paved, but access, whether it's gated access or just access with nitpack around the sides of the building, it's nice to have that.
yeah, and should there be some sort of dedicated reserved space for fire and rescue, particularly if you're anticipating maybe 100 calls?
Not necessarily, because when we are responding, we don't usually use a space, we just block the road and we go in. Block cars in until we're done, so,
Alright,
yeah.
and related to that, and I was saving this from the way the design and the fact that you have parking on 3 sides, are there exits all over? And so part of this is that, like are there exits to the, east, south, and west of the building?
Yeah, there'll be exits out of multiple spots for and it's again, it's gonna meet or exceed code. So we need multiple means of egress.
Right, but I mean the sense that there's ways that they can
Yeah, absolutely.
access and park on multiple sides. Do you sense like the approximate distance from the hospital in terms of time compared to Epsom? I think distance-wise they're pretty close, but you've got Route 4 in Epsom and the highway here. Do you have any sense of?
Yeah, I haven't checked.
about
I
19
sort of,
minutes.
what is it?
It's like 19 minutes.
Yeah.
He says it's not like 20 minutes, it's
Mhm.
like 19.
It's 19 minutes. Yeah, I would have guessed.
You're talking
may-
specifically from
maybe,
that area of town.
From 18.
And then
yeah, maybe 8 miles.
Yeah.
Alright. And then I am completely ignorant in terms of why every time you call an ambulance, you get a bill, but town's own ambulance. So can someone maybe dumb it down? There's lots of different places that might send response, right? It could be from Canterbury, it could be community response. Is the town paying every time the town, like for all the EMS services that we provide, or is there reimbursement when a Canterbury rescue truck comes for medical emergency?
So there's no reimbursement, Canterbury Rescue is paid by town taxes, and we perform the service at your house, whether it's putting the fire out, getting a cat out of the tree, helping grandma because having a heart attack. Either one, we perform the job, we go back, there's no cost to Canterbury other than your annual tax.
And if you're not available or another town's closer, is there some sort of intermunicipal agreement where we're reimbursing that town?
Intermunicipal agreement with all of our surrounding towns that if we're not available or we are on another call, they will respond to our town like we do to
And
theirs.
that's just mutual, it's not, we're paying, it's just we
Right.
agree to respond if they
Right.
need us, they agree to respond if
Right.
we need us. given the proximity to the edge of the town, like we are all the way to the west of Canterbury, do you anticipate that a lot of these calls are going to be handled by Northfield, Boscawen, Concord?
So that area of town is primarily responded to by Pinnacle Rescue, a contracted ambulance service.
Okay.
If they are out on a call and don't have an ambulance available, it's either Concord, Northfield, and we do have a contract for part of the town for Loudon to come in as well. So whoever's closer is gonna go to that area.
But it's fair to say a significant amount of them is going to be non-Canterbury responding. And where I'm getting at is if other communities are going to have to carry a lot of these, it's probably an issue of regional impact where they might want to
Our
weigh in.
contracted ambulance service is more than likely is gonna see the most impact.
Okay.
Which would impact our annual cost to them, because it's a matrix based on the volume and the population of the towns, and matrix they figure out every year, so it'll be an increase there as well.
What is the average cost for a call, do you know?
So the contract we have in summary, and kind of maybe would add to this is well, what is our annual, well, we're kind of kind of 140-ish?
For the
To
year.
provide service annual for the town, I don't know the number off the top of my head.
It's in our town report.
So our.
So we pay them to provide
It was,
ambulance service to the town. If they come and take you to the hospital, they are charging you and or your insurance company for the services they provide during that transport.
Okay. Megan?
So if this estimate is correct, say there's an additional 100, we said there's a matrix, do you know about how much more that would cost us in our contract?
Not off the top of my head.
they use a formula every year. They just started last year using this formula. Canterbury Rescue is a private nonprofit ambulance service and serves the town of Boscawen, Canterbury, and Salisbury. They always base their annual fee to the towns on population. Because of the call volume that was required to the Merrimack County facility, nursing home, memory care unit, and correctional facilities, they increased quite significantly over the last few years. The three towns got together and met with the county to see if the county facility would help with that cost of providing ambulance service. The way Canterbury Rescue operates, the money that they get from the municipalities pays for their operating costs. That's their salary for their people that employ 24/7 paramedic coverage. The facility they have. Any charges when you call an ambulance, you get charged for that service depending on the level of care. Those fees go towards buying a new ambulance, buying equipment for the ambulance, those types of things. The operational costs are just from the towns. So a couple of years ago, they decided, after negotiations between the town and the county, they felt it was best that they figured how they build the towns, and so they brought in and I don't know what their formula is. I don't know if it's 30% population and 70% call volume. I don't know. I'd have to ask them, but they use a percentage based on the population, the base population of the town, and then on the call volume that they encourage, they get the year.
So if I'm understanding right, if there's more calls and
It's
Pennacook,
gonna cost
which is
more.
nonprofit, it's gonna cost Canterbury more.
Canterbury more.
Not other towns, so it's
Correct.
not an issue of other towns having increased
Correct.
costs and needing
Correct.
notice.
Correct.
It's okay.
Yeah, the impact on the other towns would be anytime the other town's own, like, fire department is responding to something.
Right, which I,
Well,
it's
I'll just add this as an aside, that Canterbury Rescue now staffs one ambulance full-time 24/7. Their calling volume is nearing the point where they are unable to handle all the calls. They miss a call here and there, but they are getting close to point where they're gonna have to staff a second ambulance, which would increase costs dramatically to the towns. So that's just one of those things, the cost of doing business, but it is one of those things we have to take into consideration.
Right, and the reason I'm flagging some of that now as sort of preconceptual is last time we talked regional impact and it delayed everything. If you sort of err on the side of caution and notice the abutting communities up front, there's no reason you have to wait for a regional impact, and then there's no chance of delay, and as you see, a lot of times none of them show up. Whereas we will have to make a sort of final regional impact decision if they're not noticed at the start of any site plan review.
I appreciate
So do with that information, you know, what you will.
Thanks.
Yes, Jen, is it Errol?
Yes.
So given that this was based on a nursing home, which does have medical providers on site, I'm curious if you have any of your other facilities that have around this many beds, how many do you see a year? And if you don't know, if you could bring that information, because I'm imagining, you know, a lot of things common, you know, elder care issue, UTIs is actually a medical emergency for somebody who's elderly. That could be handled on site at a nursing home. That would actually require a transport to a hospital and an assisted living facility, especially if they're not driving. Well, so I'm just curious if your number matches this 100 estimate, or
I'll bring back accurate information.
Sure.
But off the cuff, I think that estimate is probably about what we experienced.
Okay.
I would have guessed around that for this size community.
Alright. Last call for any more questions for the chief, and you're welcome to stay after that, and then we'll go to the rest of the public.
I have a question for the chief. When we approved the other half of this project, we talked about buried tanks for fire suppression water. And I can't remember any of the details with that. And I
Good
think
catch.
there were a certain number of tanks and then some land set aside in case you had to increase it or something like that. And I'm just, I guess I wanna make sure in the long term that there's enough water, you know, submerged tanks. And the ones that we talked about for the other half of the project seem kind of far away to me, and they would require a lot of plumbing. And so I guess there will be tanks here that will satisfy the fire chief.
Yeah,
Hopefully, Dr. John.
I can't comment on the sizes, I don't honestly know. But we would absolutely would make accommodations to provide the sprinkler protection that's required and that we want.
Yeah, so when it comes time to designing that, I have an office that's readily available to me and assist the community. The fire code people, that's all they do. They don't ride fire trucks, they do fire codes, they do building plans, they do all that stuff. So that person, he or she will be working side by side with me, with the developers. And at the end of the day, before the shovel's in the ground, the plans will be signed off on and all agreement, and then moving forward with that, so.
Yeah, and DHHS gets involved as
Yeah.
well, the state fire marshal.
Yeah.
And you know, we employ an architect and part of their job is to do code review so that, you know, the plans will be designed, we'll get code review done, and then your departments review that, and there's a working relationship there.
Yes, absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
I have one more.
Yep.
So it sounds like most of the impact from emergency calls would land on the Pennacook Rescue Team. Would you anticipate that we would need any additional staff in Canterbury's own emergency department to handle, let's say for the sake of argument, the combination of this and the new 24 single family homes, although we've established those are
I haven't,
awash.
I haven't really given that any thought at this point. This fiscal data was just developed yesterday.
Sure.
So my mind is probably gonna go there, and it will upon your request, but right now we are staffed Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 4, with one person on duty, and a 26-hour-a-week fire chief. The rest, we rely on people coming from home, if they, you know, if they want to respond, so.
Alright. Thank you very much. We're gonna go to the rest of the public and make our way around. Bob?
Hi, Bob Stevenson, Hackleboro Road, Canterbury. Full disclosure, 25 years Vice President of Development, Carolina Assisted Living in North Carolina. So I've been on your seat many times. But what I would say for you guys and for the board from my perspective is, senior assisted living is a residence for the frail elderly. We seriously need it in this state. Those of us who are now currently or were recently consumers of senior services for our parents know that that's the use that is definitely needed. I think a couple of key things to bear in mind, whether it's this board or the ZBA going forward, is to confirm that this is a senior living building, that it's not ever going to be a mixed population of either physically disabled or developmentally disabled younger people, because that is a different demographic and it introduces different complications, so to speak, to the plan. Acuity level is important, right? So assisted living is not medical care. It's not a nursing home. So I think it's important to bear in mind that the nursing home numbers don't really apply here. If I were saying that, that estimate of 2 calls per week, essentially for a fully occupied facility, is about right. In our experience in the facilities that we built and operated in North Carolina, they were about this size. The one question I would have you gentlemen to confirm for both boards is that you are pursuing a single occupancy model. In other words, licensed beds and units aren't always synonymous with one another. And in many cases, especially in memory care, those rooms end up being double occupancy. One, it's clinically appropriate. It's actually sometimes better to have a roommate at that stage of the state. So I would just want the boards and you guys to confirm how many residents you anticipate, rather than simply having the number of units identified, because I think that'll become important to some of the decision making about the eventual size of the resident population. I would also note that the parking that you're showing on the plan is way too high. Save the asphalt, save the planet, save the impervious surface. No one who lives here will drive. In my experience over all the years, and we topped out with probably 1,500 residents, 1 car. And the family was trying to take that one away. So on that side of things, I think that's fine. Overall, this is a good use. The impact on municipal infrastructure is generally quite low. Nobody drives, nobody goes to school, right? And from a facility perspective, let's see, they generate no noise, they have no bright lights, no offensive emissions, there's no industrial activity. There are a few things on earth quieter than an assisted living facility by 8 p.m. at night. So if you have neighbors that are concerned about that, I think you can reassure them that it's really pretty quiet. And in terms of EMS response, typically the EMS response is usually fairly quiet because there are 72 bedrooms in there, and the facility goes upon them screaming in with sirens blazing in the middle of the night. So I think that's all I would say. Generally with regard to that, I think it'd be interesting to see how you develop your site plan. And the only other comment that I would make at this point is I very rarely have seen these developed without access to municipal activities. Immediate utilities, because I don't know what your water volume ratio is, but ours was always at 72 residents, 4,000 to 5,000 gallons of water a day. So that needs a good well.
Yeah, we've been looking into that. Thank you, like spot on. So to answer sort of the question,
Yeah.
is it a single occupancy? And I actually completely agree, right? So memory care, we often try to get folks to consider a companion suite, but the last year or two, the families are reluctant to accept that, and it becomes a real sales challenge. So my expectation would be single occupancy.
Other question?
And the units would correlate to the beds and the residents.
Okay. The only other comment I heard earlier was with regard to a traffic study. In 30 years, I never did one for assisted living. If you go to the traffic engineer's manual and you look at an assisted living use of this size, it never trips the requirements for a traffic study. The trip generation is generally so low. Are your shifts staggered, offset? Because most of the time, these facilities, first shift is like a 7 to 3, second is 3 to 11, and overnight is 11 to 7. So your staff traffic is that offset to the typical commute time or not?
It is. Yeah.
All right, any follow-up questions based on that? Good. Anyone else from the public? Just making sure I give all of you a chance. Excellent. Any other questions from the board or questions from the applicant in terms of things that we missed? Oh, I've got one. What's the one topic when the last time you were doing site plan review that was a big issue that we haven't talked about? If you were here, what would you ask you?
I don't know.
I have just one general curiosity. You mentioned hearing that we were considering something like this as a benefit to the town. Why didn't you bring this up when we were having that kind of back and forth about potential commercial uses? I was surprised to see that you were the owner of it.
Yeah.
Then you're coming here and now just now.
Well, I did mention it, and
You did.
I did, yeah.
Okay.
It was
And-
brought up fairly briefly,
Yeah, I mean,
last
I didn't-
August or so.
wasn't focusing on me, right? We were trying to get a development through for my buddy. But you know, at the time, I have to admit, I didn't think the market was gonna support it. So since then, I've done a deeper dive. I've
You
looked
found out
around.
people age?
No. The market in terms of the current occupancy or rooms out there, right? And the rate at which they're being occupied. I think somebody mentioned tonight, there's another one being built in Boston, right? So those things factor in, and at the time, I honestly didn't think that there was enough demand in the short term to support this. Now I feel differently.
I think there is. I've run into wait lists. I assess for dementia, things like that, so I diagnose it, so there's wait lists in this area.
Riffing on this, you know, what we've seen with breweries, too many of them gone out of business, you know. I think the dispensaries issues in other parts of New England have been the same way. Supposing, you know, there's an overbuilding of these things and this facility is built, is there other commercial uses that this is maybe amenable to in the long run if the you know, I don't know if you go out of business, but you know, it's like if it doesn't work out, you know, it could be a long time, it could be 25 years from now. What other sorts of commercial uses might fit into this?
Adaptive reuse, I could think that it could be a hospitality based community or, you know, building. Again, I don't know the market demands. I think somebody more creative than I would have to come up with something that it could be reused for. Office.
Yeah, major rehab of it could be office space.
Yeah.
I think Errol's probably hoping to be retired before that becomes a
Yeah,
problem.
yeah, and
Or a
I'm
resident,
hoping that it stays viable, like well beyond my days. Yeah,
Alright.
so I think that, you know, markets are gonna dictate what can or can't happen. But I think now that the timing, in terms of like permitting this is gonna take a while, getting it built is gonna take a while. And you know, in terms of supply and demand, one of the things that's, as we experience going through this process, like permitting any type of community like this is a heavy lift. So adding more units to the market takes time and I think we've got a good runway and demographics in our favor.
Alright,
It's actually-
Kelly,
Go ahead. You can have your.
Just an observation from something I heard before that might lead to a question down the line. When you were referring to the HOA rules, that everybody has access to all the open space. But if you have a memory care unit, you usually have a gated backyard open space that is locked and people aren't allowed to just wander in and out of. So you might have to deal with that exclusion in your HOA.
Could I
Just-
comment
I think-
to that?
I think if I heard earlier, there would be a gated area, but it is within the unit, it is not within the open space. Is that
Okay.
what I heard?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, the way that we propose this is where those dashed lines are. Within that would be considered limited common area, so that's sort of exclusive use for this unit. as opposed to everybody in the community. But to your point too, is we would have sort of a gated area.
So sorry.
Are you following up on that one? Or either way.
So, I'm thinking about sound buffer, so I just, things clinically come to mind, the proximity to the gun range, which, you know, when people are in a regular state of mind, can be annoyed but tolerate. I can think of all host of clinical reactions to the sound of gunshots. Is there anything in terms of sound buffering?
That's pretty far away.
pretty
We're
far,
there.
isn't
I don't think you're gonna hear it.
Is it?
Maybe a little bit, but
I hear it at my house in Baptist.
With the highway noise
Well,
drown
so-
out.
that's your name.
So I think
We're out there every day and you do hear it, but we're closer
Okay.
to the gun range, but I think that's another 2,000 feet away or so.
So,
in terms of like structure and construction, there's many things we can do to
Mhm.
reduce the interior noise. Exterior, the first thing that comes to mind is maybe we build some type of water feature that is constantly babbling and running, but I think that risk exists. There's certainly highway noise. It's not gonna be the most quiet location.
alright, and then where I was hoping to sort of wrap up, was there one more? Sorry, Logan.
Yeah. You were talking a little bit about timeline, and obviously it's very pie in the sky and you're not committing to anything, but like, you know, if we were in a position to be like, yeah, do it, build it right now, like how long would it take from, yeah, do it, build it right now,
Can I
to
take that to the bank?
actually absolutely not, I don't even have that kind of authority. So like what would your timeline be from like something is approved to having a place that people can move into? Just ballpark.
Yeah, so I envision this in, let's say, 2 phases. Right, the assisted living and then the memory care would be built subsequent. The first building, so when we drop a shovel in the ground to the end of construction is probably 18 months.
How many?
18, year and a half. And then the smaller building, maybe a year.
And how long do you think the like permitting sorts of processes add to that?
You guys tell me.
Well, we're not all of it
Yeah.
either. Like,
Yeah, the DHHS permitting would be, I'll say, simultaneous, like once we get a general feel for how this is gonna go, the architecture would get started and the process with the state pre-shovel in the ground, probably 6 months.
So 2 to 3 years from.
Yeah, to having it fully operational, I can see that.
Just curious.
It's kind of related to where I was gonna end too, which is the table of uses has nursing homes, and so implicit in us making a decision, or you know, if we believe that this fits within that, you know, we're fine. If we didn't, it would have to have a variance, and someone could challenge our determination. Does anyone here, just obviously we have to look at an actual application when we get it, have any initial immediate heartburn with this fitting within the definition of nursing homes or any convalescent facilities?
I think that this fits within like the average person's vague idea of what a nursing home is, and that's probably a reasonable
People
thing
live
to-
there and there's a nurse?
Yeah, like it's an old
Okay.
folks home.
So
Before I started working with my mother on these issues, nursing home was a vague concept, and this was it.
okay, so I flag that because I don't hear any concerns here, but obviously that's, you know, in a butter or someone who's upset could potentially challenge that. I don't know if the town could, you know, float the idea to Jim Week and see if he has any concerns. I don't know if you already have or not. Okay.
I can do that.
He's the chair of the zoning board. You'll be in front of him and he'll let you know anyway for the special exception.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we're gonna have to be before them for the special exception. We can start that off with an request for administrative decision from the ZBA if we fit
Well, I
within
think
that
it's-
category.
I mean, it's their choice, but I think it's sort of implied in the request for a special exception of that use that they'd have to find that you are that
Yes.
use. So you might not need a bonus. Any not talking billboard, but any on premises advertising that is larger than the sign requirement, you'd need a variance. You should do that before you come back for site plan review. That sounds like state septic, state what do you say, 805, I don't know the reading, but like state licensing approval, driveway expansion, I think is what you mentioned. I don't
We
think
tip-
there's,
We typically seek those after approvals with the town or run them concurrently. And then request that those approvals be a condition of the overall site plan actually being signed before the first shovel can go into the ground.
You signage, you mean?
no,
For
this state side. The only one that I kind of wondered which order you would look to do is the DES sewage disposal system,
so those we've done
That's
after.
typically after.
Yeah.
Okay. Am I missing any other sort of big potential other permits that they might need to go get? I think that hits most of them. Do you anticipate any other variances to get this project off the ground?
Really not yet. The only one that I maybe had consideration on, but after hearing some opinions of the board of shifting things away from the highway, is we are kind of tight against that setback from the highway because that is considered right of way, so it's a bigger setback than a typical side setback. But hearing the opinion of the board of don't move the structures closer to the highway, it seems like a fruitless variance.
In terms of parking, it might just be helpful when you pull together your application to have, you know, maybe like the administrator of a couple different facilities, including maybe some that aren't your own facility, if this is sort of our average parking needs compared to what we do. That might be helpful evidence that we can use if we're granting a waiver to have lower parking.
Right, without doing a traffic study. Kind of.
This is a dumb one. It's a really dumb one, actually. Would you be trying to run this project concurrently with building out the condos? And if so, would that be an issue with the building permit allowances for the year?
They're cranking away at the condos down there, just stopped by the site and it's almost like they're ready for some buildings, so. It almost seems like they're gonna be done before that.
Okay.
This might be one of those unique scenarios where the building permit cap is probably more related to single family living, this is commercial.
I don't think the building permit cap applies here because these aren't
Yeah,
technically
maybe it
dwelling
doesn't
units.
apply.
So that's where I.
So
that's
maybe
why
we don't think
they
so,
don't
but
need
it's
to-
a Calvin problem, right?
Well, sure.
He
Yeah, you
administers
have to
the
deal
cap,
with that.
so
I'll Google it.
you can ask for advice from yourself or from Scott over there.
I wasn't sure how a
Alright.
facility that big, how it had it.
But yeah, I think typically like apartment buildings and these facilities and other large ones, they're just considered commercial for purposes of zoning.
Never had anything like this before.
I think that's it. Unless you got anything else? Thank you very much. Thank you for the
Thank you, it's
presentation.
very well, there's a lot of information, so, thank you.
Thank you.
Always like no, not every day. You don't have to work. Yeah, have you been in? I guess so. It's easy, but I wasn't exactly what's on
It's getting finicky on it.
I think you do, but they're kind of
It's a good evening.
Take care. Take care, Sam. you wanna give us like the quick and dirty pitch is, I'm sorry, vernal pools are not quick and dirty.
Well, not, they can be quick, you know.
Poor Kelly, and this is a good movie.
It's okay, I was interested in how it was going. So we had a subcommittee that worked on the wetlands ordinance last year. 3 conservation members and 2 planning board members. And the language that we sent up to the planning board for consideration did not have the 2,000 square foot threshold apply to vernal pools. That was intended only to apply to wetlands. In fact, vernal pools can be like this big, several square feet. They have a whole, series of things that define them. And they're very special because they support species that don't get supported by any other type of habitat. So excluding everything under 2,000 square feet is doing a disservice to the attempt to protect vernal pools. So we looked at it and we thought, oh, that was maybe just a clerical error where you thought that the 2,000 square foot restriction was supposed to apply to both vernal pools and wetlands. And I tried to clarify it, but you were already into the public meeting process, the public hearing process. So we couldn't correct it in time for last year's vote, unfortunately. So the Conservation Commission discussed it again, and I forwarded a formal request that we amend the ordinance this year so that the 2,000 square feet does not apply to the vernal pools.
Do you wanna add that are larger than,
No, I want to
Delete.
strike,
delete that?
yeah.
So, simple enough change. Kelly drafted it for us. That's why we're dealing with it now instead of the other stuff that I haven't drafted. Any concerns of word? I have none. That's sort of
So in,
call it Scrivener's error on my end, but it's really didn't have the requisite knowledge.
It's
I support it, I
Yeah.
understand it and I support it.
Okay, so I think what we can do is to sort of get this off our plate, not save it for the end. We can just schedule get the language, we'll change it so it's strike through, so it's a little more clear, and then schedule the public hearings.
For the sake of transparency, do you think we can send this to the Ag Commission? Cause they'd like to have input in things like this now, and just to keep them apprised of this. But I think we could send that out for a public hearing.
When you mean before we
Just
schedule?
give them the edits so they're aware that we're having a public
up,
hearing,
FYI.
so.
I was gonna say, when we schedule a public hearing, we should just tell the zoning board to, and Ag Commission and Conservation, and just send, obviously you'll know this time, but they should just get a
blanket
copy
statement.
sort of as a matter of course.
I'm also happy to send a message to Mark Stevens and let him know this has come up. We've proposed the change, just so they're as aware as possible. And just so you all know, in case it comes back to you, in the state definition of vernal pool, it starts with an exception. Vernal pools are not the result of ongoing anthropogenic activities, that things people do, that are not intended to provide compensatory mitigation, including but not limited to gravel pits in an area that has been mined at least every other year, logging and agricultural operations conducted in accordance with applicable New Hampshire statutes and rules. So right there, that gives the ag community a bit of an out, hopefully, in anything that might, if they might feel that it overly applied to them.
Yes, going back to, I don't think you need, you can, I don't think you need to email them. I think part of the takeaway from the all Navy sports meeting is it might just be generally good that when we're proposing ordinances, changes and having hearings, that as a matter of course, all those boards get notified. And so then we're not doing a sort of subjective assessment, they just always learn about it, and if they wanna come, they come, and then there's a little more transparency, it's maybe not the right word, but so.
Inclusion.
Yes.
Good word.
Inclusive.
So,
Good.
I'll try to touch base with Cal and see that when we get the actual language and we schedule it, that it's just
Yeah.
go.
And I had, in my email, I had sent the language, suggesting the words in red, it's all that needs to be struck from Little Roman to vernal pools,
Yeah.
there's that are larger than 2,000 square feet, just take out, just say vernal pools.
Okay,
Okay,
thanks.
yeah, thank you.
Forget the notice requirement, I think it's 10 days for zoning. So, Cheryl, can we maybe flag that we'll aim to have this on for 30 days, just to make sure we're not cutting it close and we can coordinate with the temporary land use administrator.
Yes.
Okay. What is the date of our next meeting? I think I unfortunately
Oh, no,
have to go to South Dakota of all places.
South Dakota.
And then
What
also,
are you doing that for?
So
Oh, it's actually gonna be 3 weeks
because it's,
of the days left.
and that's my issue, okay,
It'll be
cause
the 14th.
we have 5 Tuesdays in June, which is why it's pushing it, so. It'll be July 14th, and I am in South Dakota from the 14th to the 17th. You think you're available on the 14th?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if we have any applications, but I apologize for that, and that adds to the one I missed 2 weeks ago, so sorry about that. Otherwise, I'm currently working to get my email back and everything else.
This is the price we all pay for having a slightly younger, like, planning board roster. We've got, like, more jobs and kids and so forth.
Oh, well, my phone was 6 years and 4 months old, and it's finally gone, and so I'm missing like a million apps and passwords and trying to get those things back.
I tried
I
my
couldn't
last phone
for
at 6 years.
What?
She used the same password for everything like me.
You know,
Well,
There's technology for this.
one,
I
two, three, four, five.
have some of them. My technology is writing it in paper because no one is gonna steal your stuff, is gonna break into your home anymore.
Brennan, get Bitwarden.
They're not
Get
coming to your
one
home,
pass.
so don't come to my home.
One.
1Password is also good. LastPass has been fired because they did
I
it.
do have one
Alright.
password for everything.
Any,
No.
any new business or other business that needs
Old
to be addressed?
business is next on the agenda.
I'm grouping them all. Other,
Okay.
old,
There
new.
was business we.
Any
additional
additional
business
business?
meeting.
Alright,
Yes, last meeting we talked about maps. And I have these that were obsolete, so I was given them to have at home. I was gonna cut them up or use them for placemats or something. But these are the maps that are done by the Central New Hampshire Regional Planning. And it's something that I feel they do really well. And they're very cooperative and helpful. I think, Calvin, you were talking about doing something showing where cluster development could occur. So here's an example of how that could be done. Canterbury unfragmented lands, we can pass this around. It has a definition of what unfragmented lands are. It has a code showing how it is. The dark green is the unfragmented lands here.
But these maps are obsolete, presented as a newer version.
There
of
isn't,
these
there
kicking
isn't,
around.
there's as we said, at the last meeting, they are part of the master plan. And available online. So these are different things like unfragmented lands, water resources, drinking water, and this one is agriculture, current agricultural lands here. And then what we would be looking at is what's called a co-occurrence map. And this is one that Kelly worked on with the Central Regional Planning, which combines most of these other elements and gives them a rating of how the darkest is where the most things co-occur. And so this is a map that the Conservation Commission uses to identify areas that would be valuable for conservation easement. So that's the kind of thing that we're talking about. I would be willing to work with Central Regional Planning on developing that kind of map, but it's not a big deal. They have all these different layers, and you just go in and say, well, can we layer up this and this and show us where the co-occurrences of what is available, where the zoning allows cluster and where the topography allows cluster and where it isn't wet and things like that, which is, I think, what you were asking about.
My recollection is that Megan was gonna take a look at the available maps with an eye to using some
AI.
technological shenanigans if what we needed did not already exist. Did you have a chance to do that at all?
No, I was in
Zero
Canada
judgment.
last week, so I not, but I plan to get to it
I
before the
am-
next meeting.
I was surprised by Kelly, that we need to be a little bit cautious about being too specific with these things. Because, let's say we identified the, 10 most, greatest places to, easiest place to develop, but that are, or whatever, I don't know exactly what character. And then it's like, then the developer comes in and says, aha, that's where I'm gonna go.
Right.
And so we need to be a little bit subtle about it.
I'm glad someone else said it, because the cynic in me is, I would love to know some of this information, but are we creating a roadmap for others?
Right.
But
Right.
maybe, can I pitch as an
Yeah.
alternative? Is there a way to just figure out, like, what would the total build out on our class 5 or better roads be, just looking at frontage and lot? What would the build out be if you include all of class 6, like 100 feet or all of class 6?
Well, most
And then
of
just
the-
a sense of like how many parcels are, 25, 50, 100 acres.
Well, most of class 6 is agricultural, so it would not be,
Single family
it's
only.
not zoned appropriately.
I know that. I'm more thinking with legislative interference and everything else that like some of those pushes are eliminating limits on class 6 and that. So just, they're different numbers, but class 5 or better is sort of as a matter of right. What would the build out be if everyone divided their frontage and acreage? What would we be looking at?
According to current zoning?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think even Mike had used that as a what was the figure he called it, like build out ratio or something like that, where Tardif. Yeah, that like a lot of towns, once you're going south and closer to Mass, they're at the point where they're almost at
what
the
percentage
build out of
total cost of the
non-variance,
build out,
right?
So I think kind of what started this question is we were going, what if we had a map that showed what uses were allowed in each location, because we have, we know what zones we have and we know what's allowed in each zone, but what we don't have is a map that says this is what uses are allowed where, because that's the combination of allowed uses and zones. And I don't think there's any particular danger to creating that map. So maybe we start there,
Well,
see if we can get that data out of Central Regional Planning, and if we
Well,
can't figure
I
out
think
how
that
to
is-
make that data.
just the zones, but if
It's
you
just
meant
the
like if you're picking a specific type of use, like just look at the various residential
like-
or residential masquerading
I
as
wanna
commercial
go,
uses.
if I
where are
want
they
to
allowed?
do, if I want to build a nursing home facility, where can I build a nursing facility? Or if I want to build, a commercial solar installation, if I want to build X, where on this map can I? And we have all of the data necessary to answer that question, but we don't have a map that actually
Oh, it
answers that
fell.
question.
That's why I was saying you look, but I think like, for example, the nursing home, I think it's a special exception everywhere
Sure.
except for agricultural, so you'd say.
Yeah.
That doesn't matter. But yeah, my point here is that if we have a use, we know it's allowed in, zones A, B, and C, but not in zones D and E. To create a map that says, this is where you can build use X means combining the data of what zones are you allowed to build use X in and where do those zones exist.
Right, it's a
And what we don't
combination.
currently have is we don't currently have a map that actually is that combination of data.
No,
So it'd be super handy.
So, but meaning like a map for each use, is that?
That's an awful lot of maps.
Because that would be the way where you'd flip, here's a table of use, one, I don't know.
It doesn't actually
technically
have to be
numbered.
one maps, it just has to be several layers on a single map. Like,
Well, that's what
forget
these are.
these are paper, this is nonsense. I'm talking digital.
Okay.
But you can do like the heavy hitters, just like single family homes,
Exactly.
multifamily.
Yeah, it's like start with the things that are actually common, not the
Right.
things that are
I
outliers.
mean,
Can
as
I-
planning
can
board
I-
members, we're supposed to know the table of uses well enough so you can glance at the zoning map and say, aha.
That's stupid, we should outsource this to the robot brain.
I wasn't convinced that nursing home was on the table of uses. I went looking.
Oh.
So I do not know the table of
Okay.
uses that well.
I mean, neither.
What I suggest is, Cheryl, can you list under business for next, we'll call it 3 weeks from now, the next meeting, potential maps, and anyone who's interested in a specific map and purpose, just come with a list.
Well, it's like,
You like
like you said,
talking
the heavy hitters, you know, there must be 8, 6, 8, 10, whatever.
Make a list and bring it next time.
Where am I putting my Starbucks?
Yeah, Starbucks, for instance.
Because we don't have a lot of real estate left realistically in town, so I think it
Right.
should
I
be.
think you can only put your Starbucks in the commercial zone, right?
Yeah.
In
It should
the
be a
center.
simplified
It will be a
list.
home occupation before you know it.
I don't think you can have Starbucks as a home occupation.
Under 2 employees.
I'm pretty sure
Who
that
are
there's some
not
like
family
That
members.
sounds commercial.
commercial kitchen issues with that, anyways. Whatever.
We have a family business
We
with
should
a
outsource
commercial
this to the
kitchen
robot brains, we
already.
have the
But
data,
anyway,
let's make some math.
It's easier for me to comprehend if it was like, I want to see this one exact map, and then we can sort of like walk through everyone's suggestions.
Stupid old business question. The cluster subdivision, how we're gonna reapproach that. We had a meeting with Ag tonight and they very much would like to be a part of.
Yes, I know, and I am planning to involve them when I get off my butt.
Okay. I just,
Draft it.
if it's in my brain now and I say it,
No problem. You can let Mark know.
Universe.
I will not leave him out. Second thing on that point is that probably is a very easy AI generation image, which is here's our zoning map, here's our table of uses. Show me this table of use.
I have real concerns about AI hallucinations and like how enthusiastic it is about giving you what it thinks you want, but I'm also not familiar with the ins and outs of specific tools that might be good for this.
What feels like a very circumscribed prompt, which is we have these zones, here's our map, just like
Should we be able to get
highlight the
that?
zones that have
Yes.
this use. Yeah.
Can we get that? Question. But Megan knows more about this than I do.
Megan would be
We'll
like
have
challenge
time.
accepted, I'm done in 7 minutes.
I can vibe code a digital map with layers.
Oh.
I'll have time to work on that. before
I think
the
my
next
point was that central regional planning already has these layers and they are willing to do the
Well, and that's
work.
why the first question is,
And
let's
it
look at
doesn't-
what central
this-
regional planning can do already.
Well, that's,
They can do this
I
already.
think the table of uses thing is something that
Without
I can do very easily. I
Can it be
think
accessed
the more
online?
nuanced,
Oh, that I don't
how do
know.
I do the build out is definitely something that
on the town.
they're more interested in. That's why I want to kind of think about it in terms of.
I don't know what they let you.
oh.
My 10-year-old son, that was years ago now, went over to Central and he wanted a particular map of Canterbury, blah, 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 blah. I mean, they went and they printed it out, gave him $10.
Motion to adjourn?
That's really fun. Yeah. All right.
This is just the
Other
paper
business?
rendition of the digital that they.
The one you missed, we
exists.
kicked some RSA, there was an RSA you put on there you
Oh.
wanted to talk about, is that,
I didn't put that on.
oh, that was
So
RSA 674.
I assumed it came from Cal. It is related to permits and your frontage, and they have to be, you know, on a class 5 or better, or on a road shown on a subdivision plan. And so I'm very familiar with the statute. I don't really know what the question or the prompt was.
Does it just be aware?
That was one of my Supreme Court appeals, was that statute.
I thought it was building on class 6 roads.
Yeah, it wasn't that
That's
complicated.
part of it. That's one of the like
Yes.
subcategories in the statute.
Cause my understanding from Ken with the town attorney was, it's now a right, but you still have to adhere to the class 5 standard, you still have to bring the road
Oh,
up.
so
Yeah.
is it that they amended that statute to change the 50 or 100 foot, I forget what it is, dimension, they removed that?
I don't know, all I know is that the frontage still applies, so if I wanna build on Barnett, I still need 300 feet because it's ag. but I still, whoever I wanna put on there has to comply with the town, I still need a road waiver and permit. But I have the right to build there, I can't get kicked back like Sam did up at Snowshoe, you know? That was my understanding of the way it was explained to me, that the attorneys essentially said it's a right, but you still have to comply with the town rules.
Yeah, and that's how I
So-
understood.
Is a class 6 highway, has voted to authorize the issue of building permits, never assumed responsibility, waiver. I would bet, just guessing, that means that maybe that portion of the statute was amended, and that's the issue.
Brendan, I think that is, she put that in one of the folders that you had there.
Zoning change?
That's
That's what I passed out there. Can I get one of those copies back? That was Wetland. Alright, so I'll stick that. And then folder number 2 was West Road.
So I think they emailed it to us before
I
last
thought
meeting.
that was just informational and it was like.
So anyway, we'll
None of us knew what to do with it and you weren't here, so maybe
We'll-
like go
we'll circle
back,
back.
see if you can remember
Alright.
why we were gonna look at that.
I'll take a look. I'm waiting. We're like almost done with all the bills getting signed, and then I can sit down and actually know what's real and what I just have in my head, because I know it was proposed, but I don't know that it was enacted. I'm gonna put this colored one in here, so we don't. Alright. Any other business?
Move
I
to
didn't mean it to be
adjourn.
so dramatic.
Second.
All in favor? All opposed? Get out of here. Thank you all.
So the real question is, are they gonna have the pig scramble at the Deerfield Fair?
I hope so.
Is
there a
Because
reason-
like bags.